Hey, it's Susan.
Oh no, wait, not Anne. Barbara, how are you today?
We are going to show you a couple of ways to adapt the self twister game that is in the book Great Group Leaders, because a lot of you are doing things on Zoom. And so you need to know how to adapt it for that if you want to do it as is. Or like Barbara, you just look at it, which is what I want you to do, and go, here's a whole other idea, and here's how I'm going to use it. So we're going to model that for you today. So Barbara's standing. Normally in this game, you're telling the group it's a personal assessment of your emotional, mental, spiritual well-being, and you're standing just like Barbara is, and you have them do a practice round of you're going to give an instruction, an action for them to do if the statement's true for them. So for example, Barbara, if you have a pet, I'm not going to be able to see this, but if we were standing together, we would, which is proving my point about doing things online. If you have a pet, tap your right foot. Oh, I hear it. I hear it. Okay, so now you can stop. But when they do the instruction, they're going to keep doing it until I untwist them from it, because we're going to see how twisted we get and what we do to ourselves. So if you're doing online, here's the safety tips. One, some of these things might have, one of the actions has you rocking back and forth. So if you're rocking forward and someone has a V shirt or low cut shirt, not necessarily what you want to have happen online. So you can, number one, have your participants like Barbara step over to the side of the screen where she can still see me. I love this. Where she can still see me and do the actions. It's a personal self-assessment anyway, and you can go through it all as is, or you can have your group sit down and you tweak the actions. So here's just an example of what this looks like. So if you, Barbara, have struggled with making a decision of some kind, I want you to place your left hand on top of your head and keep it there. If you've ever felt a conflict between pleasing someone else and doing what's right for you, then place your right hand on the left side of your waist. I had to grab the book. If you've ever had your emotions triggered by a situation and not responded in a way you want to respond, then you're going to crunch your elbows towards each other. Oh, that gets in a good stretch. But you can see that's the most twisty part of it all, is that right there. And it might be that crunching forward that you have to be concerned about. Or if you're working with a group of older adults where that might not feel so good, then you can adapt the action to some other kind of motion. You see, we are coming up with all sorts of things that you can do. So the key thing though, I want people to remember, however you end up doing motions, and if they're stepping off screen or whatever, is that they maintain the position if that action was true for them or that thought was true for them. And when you get to the end, and I think there's only like 5 statements, you tell them to stop and hold that position and feel the discomfort in their body, because you want to really drive home the point that we did this to ourselves. It was our thoughts, it was our choices, it was our struggles, everything that goes on up here. And then the next part of the game and activity is untwisting them by statements of practices that are good self-care. If you journal to get rid of the things that are in your body, release that hand. If you go out into nature. And then of course, because we thought ahead, when we're doing this activity, the last one is, if you're still twisted in some form, smile, release yourself, and sit down. And so notice again, so it went from standing up to sitting down. So if you're having them start sitting down, just be mindful that you may not want to do, you need to tweak that last action step. So those are a few safety points for leading this online.
Nice. Susan, I just appreciated so much this activity for the movement and for the reflection for sure. And so when I think about doing it with kids, I've adapted statements like, if you got fussed at for making a mistake this week, right? Because you can turn it into growth mindset. If you felt angry, if someone has hurt your feelings, how we respond to our emotional triggers And then I can see them all twisted up and out of balance. So I can also see bringing it to how do we center? Because sometimes we are off balance and twisted up. And how do we center? Who helps us so that we're not going it alone with those twists and turns? And so I got so excited about this activity. I can't wait to use it with students of my own.
I love that. And what you just said follows nicely. The YouTube post that went up this week was on finding balance. So you'll want to check that out. And it also has another activity in there that you can do with your students so they feel in their body in a different way. How long can they maintain balance physically? And that leads into a discussion of how can we maintain balance for ourselves in other areas, because physically we know it. You know when this ankle is giving out or your knee suddenly goes forward. We have those same signals within ourselves when other things happen, when we get angry or upset and our shoulders start creeping up towards our ears and we feel that tension. And in physical stuff, and this is part of what I said in that YouTube, but it's valuable here too. In physical things, you kind of go to your core and you suck it in the middle to rebalance. But when it's emotional, when it's social, when it's mental, instead of tightening up, because that's what our body does, we have to let go. So,
Oh, I love that. The other benefit I kept thinking as the person who's leading the activity is watching the kids. Because if you felt lonely or alone, if you felt invisible, if you didn't know who to call this week, and as you watch those kids, this feels like another way to get an emotional barometer on what's going on with your students in an interactive, physical, and non-threatening way.
I love it. So there you have several ideas for how to make Self Twister from great group leaders work for your group. I hope you liked our demonstration. Subscribe to the channel, follow, share with others, because this is what we do. We help each other out to learn how to tweak activities and make it our own. Thanks, Barbara.
We missed you, Anne. Thank you,
Yay.
Susan.